With that, we are almost done with the basics, but there is one maybe obvious problem. The main.js file is huge. It has the entire store and even an extra module in there. And it might work for this app, but even here it's a lot of code. In bigger apps, I definitely don't want to have that all in main.js. Instead, just as with routing, you typically create extra files for that. You could start with a store.js file and outsource your entire store into that. That might be a good start. So let's grab the module and this store, cut it all from main.js, and instead add it in store.js. And then also, of course, cut the create store import, go to store.js, and add the import here, because we use create store in this file, and then in the end export the store as a default so that we can import it in main.js. Import store from store.js, and with that everything should be working again. Yes. But this is just a start. Store.js is still huge, and in bigger apps with many modules, this quickly becomes a super large file. Therefore, typically we go even further than that. Often you add a separate folder named store, and in there you then have your index.js file, which holds your main store creation logic. Then you have separate files for actions and mutations, possibly also for getters if you want to. And then we create separate subfolders for all the modules we might have, like the counter module. And in there, again, you could have an index.js file, actions.js, and so on to merge things together. Now I'm going to split it like this to show you how this could work. I will also be honest, for this demo, of course, that's all overkill. But with that, we have a bunch of files. And now let's see how we split the code into those files. In store.js here, I will grab from my main store this whole logic to create a store, including the export. And I will cut that and add it to index.js in store. So not index inside of counter, but index inside of store. Also grab the import here of create store and add that to index.js in the store folder. Now I grab my mutations, in this case the one root mutation I have here, grab this object here, and in the mutations.js file, I will simply export this object now. Again, this is overkill. Just having one object in a file, there would be nothing wrong with having that in index.js. I just show you the ultimate solution for very big apps here. So with that, I'm exporting my mutation object, and we import that in index.js then. Import mutations from mutations.js. Maybe also name this root mutations to make it clear that these are the mutations that influence our root state here. And I assign root mutations to mutations then. Same for actions. Grab the actions object actually, go to the actions.js file in the store folder, export it as a default, like this, and back in index.js, we then import the root actions from actions.js, and then assign root actions here to actions. And the same if you want for getters. Grab the getters, export them in the getters.js file, like that. And back in index.js, I import my root getters from /getters.js and assign root getters to getters. And now this is a very lean file. The state stays in here, by the way. Now for the modules. In store.js, I still have the counter module. I now grab this code so that store.js is empty, and hence we can delete the file, of course, and go to the counter folder in the store folder, and there in index.js I paste it in. And I export this entire object as a default, simply like this. I leave namespace here, I leave state here, but I grab the mutations object and move that to the mutations.js folder in this counter subfolder, and export that in here. And then again in index.js, but now in index.js inside of the counter, I import counter mutations from /mutations.js and assign those here to mutations. Same thing for actions. Grab the object, go to actions.js, export them here as a default, like this, and in index.js, import them. Import counter actions from actions.js and assign them here to actions. And last but not least, we can do the same thing here for getters. Grab the getters object, add a getters.js file inside of the counter, export our getters object like this, and then import it. Of course, you can tweak the file names, by the way. You don't have to use these exact file names. I'm just following some convention here, but you could also use a different file name here. So here I then have to counter getters from getters.js. So assign them here. And now this is all split up. I'm exporting my module here. So now in index.js here in the store folder, I can import my counter module from counter index.js and now assign my counter module to numbers. And now in main.js, we no longer import store from store.js, but from the store folder and there the index.js file. And with all that out of the way, it works as before, but now with a different folder structure. Now, if you want that structure or not is up to you, but it is one option. You can also change this a bit more. If you had multiple modules, you could also add a modules folder here and move counter into modules, and then have other modules like a products module folder, if you had some, in the modules folder as well, to make it clearer that you manage your modules in here. You then just need to adjust the import and import counter module from modules counter index. And as I mentioned before, you can also tweak the file names so that they make sense to you. You could also split actions, getters, mutations, and so on for the root state, but not for the modules. It's up to you which structure you want. I'm just showing you one possible approach to make sure that you have small, maintainable files instead of one super big file where you then have to search for things all the time. And therefore, this here is one possible way of building this. It is overkill for this demo, but of course it shows you what you can do in bigger apps.